I'll go ahead and call our meeting to order, and we'll begin by rising and doing the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag in the corner here. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And just a reminder, as we go through our meeting tonight, we'll keep focused on our district mission and priorities of academic excellence, recruiting and retaining quality staff, resource management, and community relations. Laura, roll call, please.
Dominic. Here. Fields. Here. Rip Hagan.
Here.
Boyd. Silva.
Here. Would we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I will make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Dominic. Aye. Fields. Aye. Rip Hagan.
Aye.
Silva.
Aye. Okay, next on our agenda is open forum. This would be the time for anybody to speak that's not on the agenda.
Hi, my name is Jefferson. I'm the new naturalist here for Greene County. I was just coming in to go ahead and introduce myself, give you a little bit about myself here. Originally from the Midwest, grew up in Wisconsin, went to undergrad for Kings, South Dakota State University, proceeded to go to grad school at Southeast Missouri State University, and then went to work with North Dakota for the state there, and then proceeded to get a gig with Federals down at Will Beach National Fish Hatchery, working at Fish and Wildlife Service. Proceeded to move back from the Midwest when I started having kids, and decided, I'm going to try out for naturalist gig, and I got that. Been in this position now for about a month. Looking forward to getting opportunities to work with the students as well as bringing outdoors in the classrooms and the classrooms outdoors.
Awesome, very good. And so you work with like Tanner Sharman
Yes.
quite a bit and stuff like that?
Tanner Sherman, and he's the director, and Joe Allen, he is the, he's the patrolman or
Yeah,
what
like
have you.
DNR. Yeah,
DNR guy. So,
very good. Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for speaking. Nice to meet you. Is there anybody else that would like to comment during open forum time? Okay, then we'll move on forward to our consent items. Any questions or comments on any of those?
I will make a motion to approve the consent items as presented.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Fields. Aye. Dominic.
Aye.
Rip Hagan.
Aye.
Silva.
Aye. No old business still, so then we'll move on to reports and correspondence.
Yeah, I'll just make this short and sweet. So obviously next week is homecoming week. It also seems to be the annual, everybody likes to throw toilet paper on my house and my lawn. And I have a bigger surprise for those who might decide they want to come and do something to my house this year.
That's just tempting.
yeah,
Challenge
that is
accepted.
So that might be an invitation and maybe it's not. All I know is it's a truck with about 1,000-gallon tank on it. So have fun. So, and if you're gonna throw rolls, full rolls are cool. That was great. Obviously, we play Sadell on Friday. Lots of activities going on throughout the week. Got some home volleyball matches and whatnot. So really solid first few weeks of school so far underneath us, and just looking forward to having that momentum continue throughout the school year. So.
Any other board committee reports? Okay, then we'll move forward to C, other administrative reports, and there is a link for that one.
It's me. Okay, do you want me to stand over here? Where do you want me to stand?
Wherever you'd like.
Stand.
Whatever
Okay.
you're most comfortable.
Well, I have to look at it too, so I need to look at it and I need to, okay, so we are gonna just take a look at all of our schools, just so all of you know that aren't sure what I'm gonna be talking about. All three of us principals are gonna be taking a look at our last year's school improvement plans and our data and just kind of what our next steps are. All right, so, and I'm in the way. Maybe I'll stand here, then I won't be in anybody's way. Okay, so our goals last year were focused on our universal screener achievement in reading and math, And one about attendance. So our reading and math goals were exactly, they're exactly the same, just one for reading, one for math. That we would have 70% of students achieve benchmark or the 41st percentile or higher in reading, and 100% of students will show some growth from fall to spring throughout the year. Okay, those academic goals were the same for reading and math, like I said. Our goal for our absenteeism is 5% of students or fewer will be chronically absent. And you're considered chronically absent if you miss more than 10% of the school year, okay? And 3B, the last one of our goals last year was 100% of students attending Greene County schools will have identified with a trusted adult. So those were the goals that we really focused our work on last year. Okay, so here is a look at our reading data, how many students showed growth last year and how many students met growth. Okay, so showing growth is when I was talking about that second piece of our goal where it said 100% of students show some growth from fall to spring. That's what this first column is, shown how many students showed growth. The next one, MAP does a thing for kids where they help students set their own goal. Like, here is how you did, and MAP just automatically sets, this is what we project or think that you should grow. That's like their growth goal. So if they achieve that, if students achieve that MAP sets for them, then that's how they would get in that column. That's how that would show a positive. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. All right, so that's reading. The next slide we have is our achievement data. Okay, so this is how many students scored at proficiency or 41st percentile or higher, fall, winter, and spring for all of the grades in our school. Okay, any questions on reading? We're kind of going to go back to that a little bit, but did you guys see anything you wanted to ask about or talk through? No? Okay.
With the, well,
Yeah.
with the column on MET,
Mm-hmm. There we go. Yep.
we're allowing the software to set those goals. Is this 50% area, is that kind of the target for the software, or?
Do you
Yeah, so if
help
we
me
have,
with this
if we
one?
have, so NWA or MAP will say that if you have, for sustained growth or achievement across the system, if you have anywhere from about 50 to 55% of your kids meeting that target, because it's a very ambitious target that they set, that's really where you want to be. Anything over and above that, like if you started getting into that 58 to 60%, that you may hit it every now and then. You may hit it for one window or maybe a stretch of, from like fall to winter, for example, or winter to spring, you may hit it. But to sustain that over years would be really, really challenging to do because they set such an ambitious goal for every kid that takes it. So kind of hovering in that even like 48 to 55 range is pretty solid. If we would do that every single year, our schools are going to continue to grow. Remember, like when we talk about achievement growth, we're only looking for like 2.5 to 3% across the full school year. And if we did that, I always tell the principals, I'm like, could you imagine if we grew, I know that doesn't sound crazy, but if we grew 3% every year for 5 years, now all of a sudden, instead of us being in the, like low 70s, upper 60s, low 70s, now we're talking about us being in the, low 80s to upper, to high 80s. So, that's what we talk about with school improvement. It's slow. It's not super flashy or fancy, and it takes a lot of time. And I think we're still shifting in the right direction.
So then my next question would be, are kids aware of what their growth is, the program is expecting it to be? And then I feel like, okay, well, now we're telling 50% of the kids that they didn't get it done. And I don't want that to ding their self-esteem when they see that they are growing.
So we have the ability, and one of the things this applies, I'm gonna say for all schools, I think, I'm pretty sure, we talk with the kids about what they scored, and because our emphasis is on growth, we want them to score better than they did the last time. Okay, so we are setting goals, but they're not always tied to what MAP or NWEA says is what they should achieve. We want them to grow. We want them to grow. That's the goal. That's not what this is reporting, though. That's what this first column is reporting. For our reading, this is the number of students that did show some growth. So this is the one, that middle column is the one that the teachers set the goals with the kids. So they know how they did the last time. They talk about what their goal is that they want to be for the next year, or for the next time that they test, and then that's what they're working to achieve. So really that middle column is the one that we are talking about with the kids. Here's what you scored, and now what's your goal for the next time? It's not necessarily the one that MAP sets for them, but there are some small subgroups at the elementary school that are focusing on meeting growth, because we maybe have some gains that we need to make up, like our title reading. Our title reading team is focusing, that is part of their PLC goal. Does that make sense? So our big school goal is the achievement, but our smaller PLC teams at the elementary, they also are setting goals too for their team. And that's one that they're really looking at is, are they meeting their growth goal? Because then that is showing that they're making up those gains that they need to.
Do you think fourth grade or some of that age being lower has anything to do with like no preschool or COVID, or is that bubble that's following all kids kind of, or not necessarily?
Well, I haven't connected
That was
those
kind of
two.
a tough
Not
question
necess-
because you can't prove
No,
anything
not
either
necessarily.
way,
It's
but-
hard to predict it, really. But what I would say that for us, like I will get into where are we going next with our goals and my hypothesis on what we need to do. But they've had school now for,
Our
4
preschool
years.
class that would have been during COVID actually would be last year's third graders or this year's.
That's what I
fourth
wondered,
graders.
is
Yeah.
what bubble, okay.
Okay, so this is reading, that piece. This is achievement, okay, reading achievement. The other thing I wanted to note on the other slide, sorry, is I only have 2 grades that take our ISAS tests. So that's their achievement there, okay? All right. MAP, growth data. Again, kind of like what we talked about the last time. The one in the middle column is the one that we are really setting our goals on. Those are the ones that we're talking to the kids about. Here was what you scored last time. What's your goal for this time? That's really reflected in that shown how many % of students showed growth
And this
from
is
fall to spring. Yep, from fall to spring.
Good job.
Okay, and this is our math achievement data for the last year in ISAS. Okay, so big wins for us. You guys can look at all of the numbers and all of the things, but really big wins for us. Our chronic absenteeism is down by 24 kids, which is awesome. Means that 24 fewer students were considered chronically absent last year than were the year before. 90? We have 90 to 66. We're hovering, that's about 15% of the school. Last year we had 13%. Honestly, it's not, I think the fluctuation comes from how many students do I have in the building?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
So the number went down, the percentage went up, but I think that's where that came from. Our math achievement grew. It says 9, it's actually like 9.4%. Sorry, I just really wanted to throw the 0.4 in there.
So
Okay, 7 students did not make any growth in math, or they stayed the same. So if you score the same thing for 3 times, then you're considered make no growth. But 7 out of 434. And a big win for us was just developing our universal tier. And we kind of talked about this, what all these words mean, but that's just like what everybody gets, what we guarantee that all kids get. We're really focusing a lot on that development of behavior and attendance. What are we gonna do for all kids? How are we gonna encourage positive behavior, encourage positive attendance? What are we gonna do for classrooms? What are we gonna do for kids? What are we gonna do as a school? How are we gonna celebrate that? So those are some big wins for us. Okay, growth areas. You would notice from our literacy data, we decreased from fall to spring in achievement. Okay, that's a growth area for us. And our student growth goals were not met in reading as strongly as they were in math. So that's something that we are definitely going to focus on with literacy. We worked hard on our universal tier, like I said, all kids, but we need to continue to work on those other layers of our multi-tiered system of supports, or our MTSS system, for especially behavior interventions and attendance and our system. That's something that we're going to really work on this year. And just, okay, for attendance, we had that 3B was a trusted adult. 100% of students can identify with a trusted adult. That was a goal that we set, that we put some ideas and plans and we started having conversations about, but we didn't collect data from our kids on that, okay? So we focused a lot on our universal tier with attendance, and that was a piece of that goal for that team that we did not really carry throughout the year. So that's why that showed up again for us, because we're gonna pick that right back up, and we have some ideas on how to collect data. We just need to, that's the next step for us. Okay, so what did we do, like as a leadership team, what are we gonna do? What am I gonna do this year for our school? We really put in place a protected schedule. That the schedule at the elementary was a big win and a big deal for us. So we have time that's protected now for core instruction that all kids are part of, no matter what. And by protected, I just mean that nobody is going to be pulling kids out of there for any additional services. So not only do we have that for our core instruction, we also have that for all of our support services. So if we have protected time where kids can come out and receive those, that's what they're allowed to do then. Really working on supporting teacher growth and student growth. So just continuing to foster that. Helping build teacher capacity. Okay, we are really working on our tier 1. That's everybody, all the kids, what everybody gets, and meeting the needs of all students. So just really helping build their capacity with that. That's part of our action plan. And a supportive learning environment helping students feel connected about a caring adult. You guys saw that before. That was a piece of one of those goals that we just didn't get to. So that's what that is. I'm trying not to talk a lot, sorry. Okay. So we talked also this summer about high reliability schools and what levels. So we're really gonna hone in on level 1, take the work we've done and just continue that. Safe, supportive, and collaborative culture throughout our school. Instructional practices, that's the building teacher capacity in the classroom, effective teaching in every classroom. That's what we're gonna be working on at that level 2. Really working on our MTSS system at tier 2 and 3. That's just taking a smaller look at kids that need more support in certain areas, and what are we going to do there, and how are we going to support them in a systematic way, and continuous growth on our universal screeners, and that goes right back to our high reliability level 2. Okay. Do you have any other questions for me?
Thank you.
Middle school. So Audrey did a lot of the talking, and so I get to kind of say me too, because a lot of our buildings across the 3 of us are all doing the same things. And so, okay. So our goals are much like Audrey's goals were. The top mimic the reading mimics the math. And then we did have a behavior goal in place just from some previous administrator to me data supported that we needed to have that. So reducing behaviors by 10% during identified high incidence times. we identified, looking at the data from the previous year, that lunch and recess were some pretty high flyer times that we had a lot of our behavior referrals came from. So you can see that we were looking for 60% of our students to meet their projected growth targets on reading. We were not focused necessarily on achievement. Last year, we were really just trying to grow our kiddos. And then just some of us will, 100% will show some growth, that one point, and then the same thing for math. So looking at our data, it kind of got fun and didn't want to look at a chart anymore. So I just put it into a table for you. And so it's much like Audrey said, the blue is that observed growth. They grew at least one data point, and then that met that projected. So we didn't quite meet our goals in both areas, but we were getting very close in a lot of our areas across in all grade levels. And so this is just specifically reading. And then our achievement data, I looked specifically at spring data, and that middle column for me was math kind of gives us a lens of, hey, these kiddos, this is about the percent that you should have score proficient on your ISAS based off of their math data. And so you can see that in all areas, math was projecting that we would score in that range. But then when we got our actual data, it was actually significantly higher, which was very, we were super excited about that. So then it kind of just gave proof to what we were doing was to help kids was working. And then again, you see our math, much like Audrey said, our math was a little more cushioned in our growth area. You can see our sixth grade is a really good highlight of almost 100%. The only reason we didn't get 100% of observed is one kiddo stayed straight across. They didn't go up, didn't go down, stayed the exact same all three test scores. So we were at 98, I think it was like 98 point something percent. So it was a great job, and that teacher specifically, really, really works hard in this classroom to make sure that that happens for every student. And so we're using that to kind of help support in the other areas so that we can see that across the board. And then again, for achievement, again, you can see that projected proficiency on ISAS is a little more aligned here. So obviously what we're doing in math is working. It's keeping our kids proficient, keeping us at benchmark. Those RIT scores are what math determines as benchmark at the end of the year for each grade level. So when we talk about growth, those kiddos, they grew one, but the spring proficiency, 72% of our kids scored that 211 on that test at the end of the year. So then some really big wins for us is we were exceeded meeting projected growth goals in math. Like we exceeded that one. So we were super excited about that. And so we're really looking in at our PLC time of what are we doing in math? What are those strategic instructional strategies that they're using? Can we mimic in reading to get that same growth? Our HRS level 1 goals, looking at our data from that, our building culture, climate, all the things grew tenfold across our building in that last year. So now it's really just keeping pulse on what are we doing and how can we maintain that. We reduced behaviors during high frequency times. I believe it was like tenfold. I mean, we dropped it significantly. We targeted those. We put supports into those 2 specific locations to really hone in on. And then I think just the consistency of being enforced behavior expectations. We were very consistent. All adults were very consistent, to include myself, on holding kids accountable for their actions and being just consistent about what is expected at Greene County Middle School. We implemented house systems and staff recognition, which improved the overall building culture of my building. Obviously, I knew when I came in looking at some data from our HRS level 1 coming in last year, it was going to be a challenge to really try to get my staff to be a cohesive staff again. And so we've really implemented a lot of things, and the culture has just changed drastically in our building. We are continuing to do that, and we're adding layers this year just to keep that for not only students but staff, because if our teachers are happy and good, then that's going to flow over into the building or into the classrooms. And then we also, another huge win is we implemented a newer system for reading intervention. Reading intervention was always happening, but with the help of Tiffany, we really honed in on what we were doing with intervention. And that, I think, is why we're seeing the growth and the achievement that we're seeing is we really honed in on that. And so we're going to continue that for this year. just some areas for growth, not meeting 100%, you know, I'm a competitive person, so like not meeting that was a little bit of a dagger, but I think when we talk about the next steps, I think we've got some things in place that are really gonna help us get there. Not meeting our projected growth goal in reading. Again, I talked about our math was phenomenal, so let's look at the instructional practices we're using there and how can we roll them into reading to really bump that up as well as continuing our interventions that we have in place. I think that's also gonna boost us along the way. 66 to 67% of said that was math and reading growing. We're striving for that 100%. Like I mean, I want every kid to grow at least one. So what can we do to get that? And then not meeting our projected growth. We're not closing that gap. If they're not growing like they should be, we're not closing the gap. And so what are we gonna do to get that gap closed at a more consistent rate? So in order to do that, we're gonna build a school that supports both teachers and students' growth, much like Audrey said. We're really building universal systems. We're building systems is what we're doing. We're looking at all of our MTSS. Tiffany Hugerstraat is a huge champion of that for us in our building, and we're just continuing that. We're adjusting, we're monitoring, we're collecting data and doing it again. Like it's a never ending cycle of just perfecting it. In teaching, increasing our teacher capacity to provide intentional quality tier 1 instruction. That's that tier that everybody gets that meets the needs of all students. Teachers need to have the opportunity to gain that knowledge. So our PLCs that we do and the PD that we have structured for this year is strictly about what are we doing in tier 1? How can we get everybody strengthen our tier 1? Because if our tier 1 is really strong, then that intervention system gets smaller and the kids will grow. And then create that supporting learning environment, like Audrey was mentioning, having that trusted adult, you know, just keeping everything supportive so kids want to come to school, they want to learn, and they're happy is kind of that last piece of there. And then moving on to our goals for this year. So still staying with some reading and math goals. We sat with Tiffany, we sat as our leadership team, we looked at the data from last year, and we were very intentional about the percentages. We wanted them to be attainable. Because I know we talked about that at a previous meeting about, you know, oh, that's like a dagger to some kids. But so what is attainable for us? And if we continue to meet this, then our gap is going to get smaller and smaller, and our kids will continue to grow. So by the time they get to Karen, that gap is a lot smaller. So we just said 75%. We did add the achievement piece into ours. So we'll score at or above benchmark in the spring, and then 65% students will meet their projected growth goal. We still want 100% of kids to grow, but let's make it attainable and let's start closing that gap a little bit. Same thing for math. Obviously, our math numbers are a little bit higher just because the data last year was there. So let's keep doing what we're doing and strengthen it. And then we did add an attendance goal just because that is part of one of our priorities as a district. We were not as high as Audrey. I can't off the top of my head remember what our percentage was. We were not nearly as high as that, but we want 90% of our students to be in attendance at least 90% of school days for the 24-25 school year. We did implement an attendance team. So all of our Encore teachers are part of that PLC. And so they're doing a lot of learning about why kids don't come to school. And so that it's more of a proactive, like how can we support them to get here? Let's learn about why they don't want to come. Let's support them in coming and really have a plan in place for that.
Are your goals flip-flopped? Are you wanting 75% for math?
Nope, 70.
Okay.
Yep, based off of, the data. Yep.
5:43 p.m.
Any questions for me?
Perfect timing.
Okay. Is that your timer for me, Karen?
Yeah, it was her.
That was good. Thank you. Both of her office staff are here and they're just sitting there nodding their heads, which is kind of reassuring to see too. So, all right, Karen, you are up.
Yeah, last but not least. All right, so first we're gonna review, like the other buildings, our goals. So attendance last year, we had the goal of 90%, attending 90% of the time. We fell short of that, only 77%. This is a breakdown of our kids that were chronically absent. And then, so 83 total students were chronically absent. The Ohana program was removed from that. That's an alternative program, and their goal is to get kids to graduate. And if they're not there every day, I guess I'm gonna pick my battles, and I want them to get that diploma. So we did remove that. That number increased, and it was like 72%. So anyway, we did not meet that goal, and we're gonna be focusing pretty heavily on that this next year. You're gonna see in a few slides. But the next goal that we had similar to the other buildings, we have math and reading data or goals. And ours for 23-24 were 60%. It was all on growth. It was not anything on proficiency for that year. So 60% would meet their projected growth. Remember, that's the one where math determines what that score should be. If a kid scores 240, compares it to all the other kids, and then took the test that scored 240, how much should you grow? We wanted 60% of our students to meet that, and all of our kids to show growth in at least 1 point. So that's those two on reading and math. And here's the results. So only 40% of our students met the projected growth. In the green box, you'll see a goal was 60, so we fell short, 40. And then 46% showed some growth. And I just felt like this is kind of depressing, so I had to throw in some positivity in there. And despite those MAP scores, 76% of our students were proficient in ISASP, and that's the one that counts, in my opinion. That's the one the state looks at for a report card or whatever. So 76% of our students were proficient in reading. So I'm happy with that. Although the MAP scores didn't reflect that, I think where it counted, we performed pretty well in that gray section of that table. You're going to see the advanced and proficient in each of those grades. So 70% of 9th, 74, and 68. So some really solid scores there in proficiency in reading on ISASP. Math, our goal was 60%, and we had for the projected growth in that, and we did meet that. So our goal was 60%, and we met that. 77% were proficient in math. Again, our goals didn't have anything to do with proficiency. We were looking at growth from last year. But again, I wanted to layer in some positivity where I could, and I felt like that was worth sharing. At 77% of our kids were proficient in math, even though they didn't maybe the projected growth wasn't as high as that. And then 70% showed some growth. We were hoping for 100, but 64% were proficient in ISAS. So you see that little breakdown as well. All right, some of our successes from 23-24. The reduction of out-of-school suspension and in-school suspension was dramatic. And that, I think, is attributed to, similar to what Kara said, is that when you have expectations and you enforce them, it doesn't take kids long to figure out that there's going to be a consequence for that, and getting rid of them is exactly what they want. Out-of-school suspension for a kid that doesn't like to come to school is not a punishment. So that was a definite win from last year. Another thing that our staff worked really, really hard on through all of our professional learning communities and all of our professional development last year was essential standards being defined. This was work that started 7 or 8 years ago, but never really got finished. Do you remember, maybe, I don't know, this is all new board members now, but we sent the whole district to a training in Des Moines in October, and we were all learning about this work that we were to do as professional learning communities and having essential standards. That work started then, but we finished it in 1 year last year, and the teachers worked really hard on that. And it's basically what essential standard means. When you walk into my class, at the end of that quarter or this trimester or the term, what am I going to guarantee you're going to learn? You know, there's way too many standards to master all of them. We have to cover them all. So that was really some heavy lifting that the teachers did, and I'm really proud of that fact that they made it through. Our HRS level scores went up when we surveyed them. That's that safe, supportive, collaborative culture. That's that first level. We spent a lot of time working on that and just developing a positive culture there at the high school. And then our scores from ISASP, I felt like deserved to be celebrated, and because they really did a great job on that. So this is going to go back to a big area of growth, and this is going to be reflected in our goals for 24-25. This is kind of gut-wrenching for me. This information is the number of failed courses from last school year. We had 168 classes failed. And that's hard for me to even speak it, but we have to face the reality to know how are we going to improve. So the next click over. unfortunately, almost 74% of them were required classes. When you fail a class that's required, that sets you back from graduation. These kids if they don't pass a class and we're on semesters, it's gonna be even harder to get caught up. The 26% are like elective classes. This next part is a breakdown by trimester. So you're gonna look at ninth grade, each of the grade levels, and then each trimester of how many classes were failed. So if you notice, the numbers are biggest in 9th and 10th grades, and we're gonna come back to that in a few minutes. So that's an area that we really need to be focusing on. And one of the things that we worked on, Mr. Abbott's kind of challenged me that the high school doesn't have a vision, like on paper, and he challenged me with like, that needs to be yours. So I came up with this and I brought it to my staff this fall and asked for feedback. And I just feel like if we live this every day, I think we could send our kids off into the world and feel like we've done a pretty good job. So we're gonna be kind of coming back to that. That's seen pretty regularly in our PD. Our teachers are seeing it. We actually have a challenge of who can memorize it and recite it. I had my first teacher come in my office this morning and stand behind his back and encourage every student, and he got it out. It was all, so we hope to live that and to bring everything that we do back to that vision. So goals for 24-25 based on that vision is that 100% of our students or staff that learning targets, which is the next level of those essential standards. So we did all that work on essential standards last year. Now we're going to make sure that they use those essential standards to affect their daily work and as a teacher of what am I going to make sure my kids learn today. So we're just going to have them try to complete that for one course, and by the end of the sophomore year, 100% of students will have earned enough credits to be on track for graduation. When you think back to those slides about the failed courses, when you see those big numbers in 9th and 10th grade, that's setting them up for failure to graduate. As soon as they start getting behind as a 9th and a 10th grader, it's really hard to get out of that hole. So we thought that is a concern for us, and we want to make sure that we dedicate time to that. And then we don't want to also forget about the 11th and 12th graders. So that next goal is about completing courses that support a post-secondary plan. Again, that ties pretty closely back to that vision that you just saw. Like, what are we going to do to make sure kids are taking classes that affect their life after school and to make sure that they're being successful in the next chapter. And then the next part is about attendance. 85% will attend 90% of the time. Our percentage of absent was about 23% of our students were. I would love to say that we could get to 90, but I felt like if we're going to be attainable, I think Cindy and I think it was in our June meeting, you're like, you know, these goals, I feel like you guys are worked too hard to never meet a goal. So we tried to lower that. I don't want to say we're lowering our expectation, but we also want it to be attainable. So it's making sure that kids are here and attending, and that and then making sure that they have an adult, because that is really important to have that trusted person that will hold them accountable and have conversation and care for them.
Did you see a correlation between the kids who were failing items and attendance? Did those
Yes.
kind of match up?
Yeah,
I would
so
presume?
there was not as big of a correlation as I thought there might be, but there was some. Yes, there was some. That was a question that Brett asked me the other day or yesterday. There wasn't as much correlation as what I thought. So that brings up a whole another topic, is if they're attending and they're passing or not passing. You're like, okay, so that means there's a struggle going on, and if they're at school but they're still passing. So that's a whole nother layer of things we're going to be digging into. There we go. All right, so for this next year, we're going to have create an attendance team to make sure that we can really target attendance, because we want kids to be there so that they can obviously learn the things, but then to pass and to graduate. That's our ultimate goal at the high school. And then making sure that those learning targets, we're really working hard with Tiffany Hogestra, the MTSS and curriculum director, to be creating professional development that allows those teachers to really learn how to grade those learning targets so that kids know what they need to learn that day, and then be able to tie assessments into that to monitor it. And then I'm just going to be working really hard, and a team of us together, working really hard on making sure that we're staying on top of credits, kids that are on that verge of failing, so that nobody's falling through the cracks. Any questions for me?
I think this makes sense a little bit why the handbook got updated in a couple spots, that if you're failing, you can't do certain things.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a good incentive.
And there's a lot of research out there about that 9th and 10th grade, like once you start, like, yeah, and you'll notice that I took the math goals out of our goals for this year. And it's not that math isn't important, that we don't think that it's important. We're definitely gonna keep doing it, we're gonna keep using it. But I felt like these goals, at the end of the day, we want kids to be able to graduate. That is our job at the high school. And if we're doing those things, and if we're making sure that kids understand what it is they're supposed to know and learn before they leave that class, and if we're making sure that they're attending, if they're taking classes that pertain to their post-secondary plan, and that's gonna get them to graduate. And also, if they're able to do those things, they're probably gonna be scoring better in math.
And I would say by the time they get to you, they're either gonna have to have additional resources elsewhere for reading if they
Yeah.
can't be proficient today with.
Right, for sure.
So there's additional resources as far as books online and that type of
Yeah.
thing. Because you have the hardest job and you're in the middle of trying to like shuffle. But if they can't read
Right,
day one, how are they gonna succeed? So
Right.
you're at the point where,
it's like rubber meets the road.
Right,
We have to
this
get kids ready to leave this nest and go and be good citizens and be able
correct.
to
And
produce
that's
a
very
paycheck and
important.
contribute to society in a
Yeah.
positive way. And not that math's not important, but it's not where we're at,
Yep,
so.
Thank you.
thank you, all of you.
Any other comments? Okay. Well, any other reports or correspondence? Now we're on to new business. All right. So I'm gonna turn it over to Michelle to do school permits. Kids, now you know how important it is to go to school. And if you're approved, we're gonna help you get there. So Michelle, you're up.
Okay, so I have quite a few of you here this evening, and what we're gonna do is just work our way through the list, and Matthew, we'll start with you. I'd just like you to stand up, tell us your name and why you would like to have a school permit.
All right, my name is Matthew Gannon. The reason I'd like to have a school permit is because I'm in sports and I feel like that really helped me get from school to sports. On Mondays, it's really hard because my parents both work and I have no ride to get to school or home, come back. And yeah.
That's plenty. Thank you very much.
Andy?
My name is Andy Sanders. I would like to have a school permit because I lived approximately 2 miles away from the high school, and I'm also in sports. None of my parents actually work in Jefferson or even Greene County, I think. And I also have 2 other siblings that need to be in the elementary school and middle school, so trying to shuffle all of those around is kind of hard.
Thank you. Sam?
Hi, I'm Sam Fitzpatrick. The reason why I think I need my school permit is because I live in Trident and I come to school down here and I'm involved in a lot of sports. And my sister's busy with sports and both my parents don't work in Greene County, so it's really hard for me to get to school.
Thank you. Noah?
I'm Noah Hadley, and I need a school permit because I live 7 miles away from the school, and my parents both work on Mondays, so I don't want to rely on them. And that's it.
All right. Owen?
I'm Owen Frederick. I want a school permit because I live out by Bagley, which is quite a ways away, and I do sports and it'd be kind of hard getting there, seeing how both my parents work.
Gage?
I'm Gage Derry, and I live 2.7 miles away from the high school.
Give or take.
You gotta count.
Both my parents work out of town, and Carroll, and I'm a multi-sport athlete.
Skyla?
I'm Skyla Gilmore, and I think I need a school permit because I have 2 jobs and I have cheer and practice and games almost every day of the week. And I live within a mile of school, so that means that busing isn't available to me to go to school. So I have to balance like how I get rides to and from school and everything else.
Thank you. Krista.
Hi, I'm Chris Eversole. I need a school permit because both my parents work and I do a lot of stuff and my mom can never get me.
I'm Briella McDonald, and the reason I need a school permit is because I live in Scranton and I have volleyball after school and I have a bunch of other sports that I do. And my mom doesn't want to drive from Scranton all the way back to here on Mondays and bring me home and bring me back. So.
And Vanessa?
I'm Mr. Hale. I need a school permit because I live in Scranton and I play sports and it's hard to get to and from school and practice while relying on other people.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so hopefully all of you have gotten the form from the DOT. It's Iowa Form 430021, submitted on July of 24. So it's a kind of a newer form. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things here that are important that you should know, but ultimately it's the job of you and your parents to know what all of the rules are. Let's see, let's start on this side. So now you're able to drive up to 25 miles from home to school or to other extracurricular activities or for a job. And you do need to take the most direct route from one spot to the other. If you do participate in extracurricular activities, they must be still within that 25 mile limit. So if you are going to the high school, you can come over here for football practice or games, because games count as extracurricular activities and so on. You're also allowed to drive, if you really want to, you can drive to a school bus stop and get on the bus instead of come to school, but I figure if you get your permit, you're gonna. You can stop for fuel. So you can go off route a little bit if you need to stop and get gas somewhere along the way. But if you're coming from Scranton, you shouldn't be in Grand Junction getting fuel. Okay. And then you are also allowed to drive for employment to get yourself to and from your job. And the times that you are allowed to drive is 1 hour before and 1 hour after your activity. So if the bus gets back from an event at 10:30, you need to be home by 11:30. If the bus leaves for a field trip at 7 a.m., you can be out on the road as early as 6 a.m. Okay, so you've got that hour plus or minus. You can have one minor passenger who is not a relative, so one of your people living with you. So if you want to bring a friend, you can bring a friend, but friend has to get in the vehicle with you at your house. You're not stopping to pick friend up, a mile off route. And this one's important, all passengers must be secured by a seatbelt, front seat, back seat, all passengers. And then some other things that are kind of new is if you have any sort of a traffic violation, you will lose your license for 3 months. And each time, so you lose your permit right then. And then when you turn 16, if your license was suspended, then you have to wait 3 months after you're 16 before you can get your license. If you get in trouble again, then it turns into 6 months. Okay, so they keep tacking them on. So the easy thing is just don't get pulled over. Wear your seat belts. If your buddy in the back seat or your friend in the front seat is not wearing a seat belt, you can get a ticket for that. So it's your job to make sure that everybody's buckled up. So with that, Bonnie will sign all of your papers after we make a motion, and I'll make a motion to approve all of the students on the list there to receive their special minors restricted license.
All right, there we go. We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Rip Hagan.
Aye.
Dominic.
Aye.
Fields.
Aye.
Silva.
Hi. Okay, this is the time where you guys can come on up and I will sign your forms. If you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you can. If anyone wants to leave at this time, they sure can as well. So. All right, I think just for 7 minutes. And just make sure your name is at the top so I'm not signing anybody else's. Yeah, exactly. You can make copies for your friends.
I don't know.
Yeah, it does. That was really, oh, you should be. It was really nice. I thought you meant that baby.
Oh,
Wow, where's Matthew? Typed up? I bet. Thank you guys very much. If you need anything else, just let me know. Oh, there you go. Noah, you have such nice handwriting. Kind of looks like your mom's handwriting. Maybe a little bit. And guys, no joke, TPing is not a school permit activity. Ask a friend of mine. I had to walk home from TPing.
What if I TP at the school?
Nope. Tried it, doesn't work. Yeah, thank you guys. There are, yeah, the school is the worst place to try to live. All right, thanks, Owen. You guys have a vehicle yet? Almost? You do? All right, here you go. Oh, but I have There you go. Bring it into the office when you start around. No problem. Yeah, thanks.
That's good, then you get a good reaction, because then he's like, I'm not gonna ask, I'm gonna go back and look at it myself.
I'm gonna attempt to, who knew this was gonna be the thing I needed to order for? Okay, we're gonna keep moving forward with our meeting here and go to fundraiser requests. The second item on our new business. Any questions on the fundraiser request? There was the last one added there at the end, if you see it, second link. The vending machine thing, there's only one group that knows they're doing it, right? Okay. So no question on that one. And if there's no questions?
Question. Have we been getting feedback from the, we talked about it a few meetings or like a year ago. Can we get feedback on how much did you were you able to raise?
Do you know what would be good? Maybe we should just, on the fundraiser form, add a line that says, if you've done this fundraiser before, what did it make last year?
That would be helpful.
That would be super
But they may or
easy.
may not do both.
So then someone has to track that then too, right?
Well, I just mean if they wrote it in their own handwritten, they could go
And
look it
then we
up.
just see it whenever we
Yeah.
get the, okay.
Is that even possible?
For them to write on it?
Yeah, for that form to be updated, right?
And I mean, I could go
Oh,
back,
there.
I could go back and, well, for the activities ones, I'm not
Yes.
gonna go for.
Oh,
No,
okay.
Dave, or-
Geez, Dave.
Sean could probably do that too. And
You're getting dagger eyes right
I'm not looking in their direction. I'm just
no, but I could put, you know, give you a general.
Well, like the mattress fundraiser, they've done numerous years, just like last year's, what was made out of that last year? They probably know anyway, just an
I can
estimate.
get
That doesn't.
We won't,
I think
we
you
won't
can,
audit
but I
it.
also think
Yeah.
it's, to me, put it back on the person who's doing it. It's not that
Yeah.
big
I'm
a
fine
deal
with
to
that, too.
ask.
Yeah, don't delegate, Dave.
I mean,
Okay, we'll move on. Is there a motion?
Completion to like report or.
Right,
right.
I understand.
just so we know.
I could make a form for them to.
I love them.
Cool.
I think we had one actually at one point.
You did, but I feel like I haven't got one in a really long time.
Yeah.
And I'm not good at tracking it. There's too much going on.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the fundraisers as presented.
I will second that.
Okay, motion in a second. Roll call.
Dominic.
Aye.
Rip Hagan.
Aye.
Fields.
Aye.
Silva.
Hi. Okay, and then this is our financial audit report. You don't have to read all 71 pages. You can, but a lot of the notes, I mean, we should, it's,
Page
we're allowed.
Yeah, so the,
Yeah, go for it.
the large majority of the findings are, it's always, for districts of our size, it always comes down to segregation of duties. You know, it's, you gotta have one person for the bolt, one person for the nut, you know, it's, you know, kind of thing. And so that's usually our biggest one. There wasn't anything significant. There almost never really is. One of them is around a budget amendment. They want us to do it sooner than we typically do. Just in conversation with Laura and just remembering what had happened when Brenda was here, she had talked about, well, that's something that kind of came up every single year, was they just wanted us to amend sooner than what we did. Our enrollment reporting, we reported 6 students less than what we actually had. So we actually were going to get additional funding for 6 students, which is great. And that can happen in a wide variety of ways. Either schools don't send us information back and it gets mistracked. I mean, with open enrollment, the way it used to operate was, kids can kind of fly in, fly out. And I feel like our secretaries do a really nice job of tracking students. Jill's really on top of getting students registered. So is Emily, and again, so are our secretaries. So it's I'll call it a good miss. It's typically anywhere we kind of, I'm gonna use the word miss, but not in like a negative way. But like we're either 2 or 3 short or 2 or 3 on the other side. So I don't want to say this is pretty common, and it's wrong in the right direction. So we'll take it. That's essentially that's the bulk of the findings. Obviously our net revenues were down over $1 million, and again that has to do with the federal funding. All COVID dollars are officially and truly gone as of FY24. So that's another big one, obviously. But
And that was why we closed those funds that we closed at the last meeting.
yeah, and there was and the activities are not. Yeah, there were mostly all the activities accounts was to
Reassign them
some of
to
them hadn't
those,
been touched in a long time. So
the only question I would have is on page 15. It lists Brenda, and I don't know if that's relevant because it was last year. Okay.
Yep, that's why. And it would still have Steve and John on there as well as board members. Yep.
We have to approve this?
No.
I didn't think so. This is just for our info. Okay, any questions or anything? Then I'm gonna try to keep us moving on here to the treasurer's report. See, look, it cleared out.
It's supposed to be a Deal's orchard.
Aren't we all?
Okay, you're gonna have to bear with me because my fearless leader that volunteered me for this position has been on vacation for a month, I swear. I hope he's listening if I'm on camera. Anyway, he was, gonna go over the annual report, do all the things, tell me the things I should cover, and I haven't heard from him. So I'm gonna wing it.
You got this.
And I have to give shout out to Laura and Sean. They make my job really easy. I mean, I just kind of enter numbers and all balances. I'm like, whoa, that was a fun month. Okay, we're done. So it's really not a big deal, and they do a really great job of what they do. So we've got the different accounts that I do get the reporting on. So if you just look at the general fund, do you guys want copies of it?
I'm looking at it.
You're all good?
Yeah,
Okay,
we're-
perfect.
yeah,
So
we're good. Thank you.
I'm gonna just brief on some things because I think that's what Sid did. So you can see what the treasurer's cash balance was July of 23. We've had the securities owned then July. So if you look down what the treasurer's total assets were, that 3.8 million. Securities owned then June 30th, 24, we're at 3.1 million-ish. So we have a treasurer's cash balance then for the general fund of the 670, 362.38. So very comparable to the prior year. The management fund, you can see the treasurer's cash balance as of July 1 was $11,068.44. We had total securities then of the 455, giving us total assets of that 466. You can look at treasurer's total assets then for June 30th of 24 was 490, 596.64. The total securities owned then at the end of that fiscal year, June 30th, was at 448. So we have a treasurer's cash balance of as of June 30th, 24, 42,596.64. Next category would be the sales tax fund. Again, the treasurer's cash balance of July 1 of 23 was the 68,5670.
We have securities at the 2,020,000. Total assets being that 2,026,000-ish. So if you look at total assets as of June 30th of 24, we're at 2.3,016,000. And total securities owned at June 30th of 24 was 2.2,005,000. So the treasurer's cash balance report as of June 30th of 24 was 111,047 cents. The Pebble Fund, we have treasurer's cash balance of July 1 of 23 at 23,211.52 with total securities at 1.2,010,000. So that brings us, we started out total assets of 1.2 million and change. So if you look at treasurer's total asset balance, June 30th is 1.6,027,254.18, with securities owned then as the end of the fiscal year at 1.6,006,000, being treasurer's cash balance then June 30th of 24 of 21,254.18. And then one more category, the debt fund, we have treasurer's cash balance, you can see is the 138,180. Securities then owned at that time were 15,656, bringing the total assets to 153,836. We can see as of the end of the fiscal year, total assets were the 215,476 with total securities at the end of that fiscal year of $33,068, bringing that cash balance of June 30th, 24 to 182,408.40. The next part of the statement just shows you where your funds located within the three banks that are your three community banks here in Greene County. So you can see the total balances. Then we can see where they're located. If you have any questions on that, I don't know, but that's kind of where our totals are at, located within the banks here in town. And then the reconciliation. So this is what I always match up with. Where are we at? With outstanding checks or any types of deposits that we need to include. And then this gives you the total reconciliation with her, the treasurer's report there. So we can see that the general fund secretaries, I balance right to each of her numbers for the general management, sales tax, PEPL, and the debt servicing. Okay, how'd I do? Is that too much? I'm like, I don't know. I think you went over prior and I don't know. So I did email him and asked him, and then we'll see if I did it right, and then I'll improve it.
I think Bonnie has to sign. I do.
Okay, yeah, you tell him that.
I will.
And then.
Okay, there you go. And then do I keep that?
I don't know.
Okay. We're gonna.
Do I get?
I'll keep it, and then I'll send you a copy.
Okay, that'd be perfect.
And then I can date it today.
Yeah.
Awesome, I'm gonna give that to her.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you just get me a copy of that.
Okay.
Because then I think I have to do something else
Oh,
with
didn't you
it.
find it?
Yes, I do. I know I gotta do something else.
Okay, I will send it.
He hasn't shared that knowledge with me yet, but.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to?
Yes, and I want to do.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to accept the treasurer's report for 23-24.
I'll second that motion.
Rick Hagan.
Aye.
Davidoff.
Aye.
Fields.
Aye.
Silva.
Aye. Okay, moving on to the certified annual report. Are we doing these three separate?
Now they're all together.
Okay.
Just more of an informational thing.
Thanks, Teresa.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I survived my first CAR without Brenda.
Woo woo!
I had a couple of questions to her, so here it is, and hopefully the state doesn't change anything.
It looks very nice. So
Well,
good
thanks,
job.
thanks.
So it's really one of the key numbers that we always focus on when we'll talk about this in upcoming board meetings when we set some financial goals for us is that line 34 all the way down to the bottom of FY 24. The unspent balance of having 1.1 million.
And that can still change, so.
It can, yeah. We generally see that kind of go down over the first few months of the fiscal year and then kind of levels off. It can level off. I don't know, say it probably, well, not probably, it will start leveling off this year, especially when we have fewer staff, so we have fewer general fund expenditures going out. So that's usually, again, that's our 76, 77% of our budget is people, so salaries.
It'll be a man's foot balance.
And then we talked about this year, Karen Sandberg and I have talked a lot about this year about we will likely see a pretty significant increase in our special ed deficit. We have some additional students that are in kind of in an alt placement that a couple are beyond our control. So, and we have some additional students with more higher needs, and higher needs come with greater costs. So I would anticipate that that's going to be that number will be higher when we finish all that out. So. And if the state can ever figure out their life with preschool foundation aid, that would be brilliant.
Any other points of
That's
highlight?
really-
Okay.
That's really it.
And
We don't need a motion on that.
Okay. All right, then we'll continue moving forward if that is okay. IASB legislative priorities.
Yeah, so IASB kind of really helped us to kind of drill down into some just kind of different of their proposed legislative resolutions. It starts down on page 13. And so if you remember back, well, for three of you anyway, you remember back to a few years ago when, they had like 40 different things that they were kind of focused on. Well, they've kind of taken those 40 and really kind of condensed them down into like 8 or 9 instead. And so what we'll do is we'll just have a discussion about it, and then whichever ones kind of seem to kind of come to the top here for us are going to be the ones that so I'll go back onto the ISB site and say that Greene County is behind these. These are the ones that we would like you to really, when it comes to the legislative session, these are things that are really important to us. And again, it's going to be an argument, like all of them are important, of course. And it's not that we're saying this is more important than another, but it's basically just like, these are the ones that we could really get behind, so.
Did anybody have a chance to look or had one that they thought for sure would be one of ours for Greene County?
I am 100% on the literacy one.
Was that number one?
Based on
Yeah.
based on what we
Same.
talked about earlier too.
Okay,
Yeah,
so let's just get that one circled, that one's for sure.
Yeah, so
Was
that's all,
there-
we believe that literacy is the building block for student achievement and student success.
Yeah.
And then they go down into really talk about preschool being really important, which I think we really emphasize that, especially in early literacy, English learners.
Is there any others that stood out to anybody else?
I think number 4 is going to be, personally, in my opinion, important for a very long time.
Yep, student educator and staff mental health needs must be addressed and supported.
Yes.
And what I was trying to do when I was doing this, and we're gonna talk next about it, is our 4 priorities that we do before every board meeting, trying to match up, like, out of these 7, which ones kind of fit and where does it fit? Because that just kind of made sense to me. I don't know if that felt right to anybody else.
Kind of like
But I feel like-
supplemental state aid.
Which I think I had
We
that
could
one. Was that
use
number 2 or
some more
7?
funding with 7.
So I had 7 for resource management and just funding.
Yep. We had 8's great. 6 is great.
Oh, stop. Okay, somebody else besides, is there any others that they thought? We're thinking,
Which ones haven't we picked yet?
well,
I thought 2 was with the teachers.
I had 2 also, effective staff. It seemed like it would fit well with that.
1, 2, 4, 7. I got 4 of the 8.
That's fine.
What was the last one?
1, 2, 4, and 7.
1, 2, 4, and 7.
2 seems to fit really well with the
In the
high reliability
they don't
school
have
stuff
those.
we're doing.
High quality teacher workforce being necessary for student achievement. Seems relevant.
There you go. So that's number 1 right there that you're scrolling through.
I'm surprised that's not the
So
first
we have
one,
that
actually.
one.
Yeah.
We did that one.
Because you're not gonna achieve any of those.
Seven.
That's the teachers.
I don't
Number
think
2 is high quality
ISD
teacher
necessarily
workforce.
stacks it in a certain way or not, but when I think about the work they do around literacy is the whole initiative for the science of reading or letters training. And that's, I mean, we started a year early at the elementary doing that, so.
The order you have them, I think is 1,
I
4,
I don't
7,
think that they're saying like one is the most important and eight is, I mean, because 8 is school safety.
Right.
And so I don't think they're saying one is more important than the other, but yeah.
I wondered if they were in an order,
I
but
don't think they are.
yeah.
I don't believe
Okay, I think we'll move forward because we can all agree that they're all
1, 2,
very
4, and
important,
7.
but 1, 2, 4, and 7 seem to fit with our priorities the best.
And we don't need it's not,
It's
we
just
don't
a-
need a motion, but it's just to give me an idea and so we can talk about it publicly too, so.
Okay, great. Okay, now that we've decided that, we'll go to G, a delegate.
Yeah.
I think it was Cindy.
Yeah, last year I believe it was.
It was. It's a nice, fun thing to go to.
So you win?
Bonnie's gonna be president again this year?
No. I mean, no. When is
I was gonna say, what day is it actually?
the delegate, when is
The delegate
Is it
assembly.
just the day before or that early?
Is it the Wednesday
The day
before?
before that?
Yeah, I'm looking up. It falls in a time frame where we actually don't need to move our meeting because we moved our meetings up, so.
Yep, and I do feel like there's gonna be stuff as board president that's extra for the assembly that Cindy will wanna go to. She probably shouldn't be it again, otherwise
Oh.
she'd be there for 3 full
I
days.
didn't know we were deciding this.
Well, we're not, I'm just planning ahead. So is there anybody else interested in being a delegate?
So the delegate.
Or maybe Cindy, do you wanna talk about just briefly what it is?
Delegate assembly is November 20th, 2024.
Oh,
It starts at 9 a.m.
and that's a Wednesday, right?
I believe it is.
And then the president's thing is on that Friday.
And I think convention is Thursday.
If
right?
that makes sense.
Yeah, the 21st, 22nd.
So Cindy, what did you do last year as a delegate?
Basically voted on whether or not certain things should pass, and you do it electronically through your computer, and it takes probably about 4 hours.
Mhm.
Some of it was interesting, some people would speak up and say why they were for something or against it. And most everything was pretty much unanimous for the most part, so it wasn't anything too hard that you were deciding on.
I'm not available on the 20th, so you probably don't want me to be there.
And I probably could be if I know I didn't have to go anywhere Friday.
Yeah, convention, really the bulk of convention too is the 21st, and then the board president's workshop is that Friday.
So does anyone care if I do it? Nope. Okay. There we go.
Do we need did we ever do a motion for that whenever
Yeah.
it was? We did?
Mhm.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to nominate Bonnie to be the ISB delegate.
Second that.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Dobbendick,
I
Fields,
Aye.
Rip Hagan,
Aye.
Silva.
Hi. That'll be fun. Okay. Funny part is it will be for me. Strategic priorities, we have a few little updates here.
Yeah, so we had a work session in July. Can we make that bigger? Zoom in. So now go to view and zoom in. Control plus. So we kept 3 of the kind of the main priorities the same with academic excellence, resource management, and community relations. We had a lot of conversation together as a DLT. So DLT is made up of our administrators, our director of special services, director of curriculum and MTSS, all of our building coaches. So we all got together. We took what the conversation was from that conversation, from the workshop that we had in July, and kind of brought it all back to the table, and kind of decided on what are we working on here in Greene County? What's really important to us? And we took that second one, which was recruit and retain high quality staff, down to just effective staff, because we want to make sure we have effective staff all the way across our school district, and really honed in on what does each one mean. And so when we talked about academic excellence, we really shifted our conversation to be really about what's best for students. When we think about academic excellence, whenever we talked about that, that obviously has to do with how are our kids growing and performing. With effective staff, it's how are we as as a district leadership team, growing our staff and what do we kind of guarantee? Lou said it really nicely in July that basically as a result of people working here, it's like we guarantee they're going to get better. And that's one of the things that we focus on every week with our professional development. Not a big shift in resource management there. I mean, obviously we want safe and efficient facilities. We want to be fiscally responsible. I think that's just kind of given, and making sure that we allocate appropriate resources, and that can be people, it can be materials, just whatever our kids need. And then of course with our community relations, which I think our principals have done a really, really nice job with consistent and timely communication. I did get a piece of feedback from somebody that had said, when we had those coffees, I said there was hardly like any communication coming from the schools, and I'm like, I vaguely remember that, yes. And they're like, well, now there's just too much. And I'm like, well, guess what? I'm like, well, too bad, I guess. And but then they're like, well, don't stop, but just no, it's too much. And I'm like, okay, well, again, it's still too bad. Providing opportunities for feedback, and then of course, really kind of cultivating that positive perception of our schools, so that when people think of Greene County, they think of it as the way that we do, which is, we have a great education system. Our kids are having really great opportunities. And, it's like when people leave here or kids, come back after a few years, it's like, instead of like, yeah, I had to go to that school, it's like, I got to go to that school, or I remember that teacher. And all of that is sitting on the bed or the plate of us having a real collaborative culture. Within and across and through the district. I mean, I think you heard and saw a lot of through line there between all three schools. That the work is consistent from building to building to building, where we have kind of that same overarching goal, that we're all working towards it, but we kind of all do it in our own different ways, to ultimately give our kids that opportunity to be successful post-secondary. So those are kind of the changes that we took from that work session, and just shifted up one there a little bit from, so now everyone's 2 words instead of multiple words. And it's a good thing we had a bunch of English teachers around the table. So
I still will go back to, I think maybe even collaborative should go more with just effective staff or a collaborative environment, and culture is still its own platform of what the culture is as a whole. That's my 2 cents.
I think so. We collaborate to make sure that there's academic excellence. We collaborate to make sure that our staff is effective by having model teaching and being able to have people go into each other's classroom and learn from each other. That's a collaboration. Resource management, and community relations, I feel like we're wanting to provide information to our families, but we want a 2-way street. Like we want the communication to be 2-way, not just 1 way. And that is, we're going to collaborate with our local businesses when they come in and provide opportunities. So everything we do is collaborative.
And I'm not saying that it isn't. I just want there to be like a culture that it's the culture you feel. It's like you go into this and you just feel it. It's not always, yes, there's teamwork happening, and that makes the culture its own, is my own, but I'm good with keeping it this way, but I personally want to have a culture that's so inviting, and it's everything.
That's foundational.
Right. It's just who we are. This is how we present ourselves. Us collaborating is just how we do it. But that's the culture that we provide. That's our framework. But that's me wordsmithing.
We did a lot of wordsmithing on this.
Would you, so again, this is just a draft. So would you want to change anything across the bottom of that instead of it being just a collaborative culture?
I don't know. That's why I am bringing it up, because I feel like it's just like the RAM culture, whatever it is. It's just the culture that we live in, is that we are always collaborating. We are always working with each other. And I know it's a lot with high reliability schools. They use the word collaboration a lot. So I'm not saying that's a bad word. And I think we do that. I just want.
You want it in a different spot? Is that what you're thinking?
That's what I was thinking.
Okay. was thinking, I think that's
Even-
what,
Just put it underneath the other
what
black
Brett said,
bubbles.
And
and
it's
that's
big
like the
black, but
foundation
just-
of all of our pillars.
Right, and not that we have to change it, but
Right.
I'm just saying, like, I want people just to say the culture here is just like a magnet, like you just feel it, you just know that collaboration is gonna be part of it, you know you're gonna manage your resources, you have the community relationship, this is the culture we provide. But
I like the idea of moving it up because I almost missed it down there. Just so it is.
Yeah, I think when it's printed off, you'd actually see it.
Yeah,
And
you
it's-
think?
Yeah, well, yeah, because instead of having to like scroll down.
Yeah.
I like the symbolism of it being foundational to
Oh,
all of
yeah.
our pillars, which I'm assuming is what your point was, yeah, yep. And I don't know how often we review and change this, but
No.
I mean,
This is the first time.
okay, I was gonna say like this, this is what we're focusing on now, but who's to say in 5-10 years,
It'll be
that
changed.
collaborative culture is part of who we are, the hope. So then we can take that off, because
Yeah.
that's just a given. Yeah.
and it's just culture, I mean, at that point, maybe it's just culture.
Right.
Because we've already are doing it.
I think
I
it
just
would be
made
good.
that up, I don't know if we have to.
No, I think it's
Okay.
good too.
Okay.
I think this document's something we could always find something to switch on to. So if we feel like it's comfortable now, or if there is anything we for sure want to switch, I would go ahead and propose that in our motion and.
I guess, Michelle, do you have a feeling either way?
I see what you're saying about collaboration is just one portion, one piece of the culture that we wanted develop, portray, whatever, experience in our school. But I also I do like Tim said, the collaboration, because now we're collaborating all 4 of those pillars together. So I don't know if you just say collaboration and not culture, but I'm also fine with it like that.
Man, I can say the way it is. To me, I really want to develop our culture more so. That's my personal. So.
Any changes you want to propose to?
I would maybe put collaborative under effective staff, but I think it could go either way, so. Of making that black bubble different than effective staff. Collaborative team.
Do we have to decide on it today?
No, we can
Okay.
table it.
Or
If
can
you
we
guys have
look at it a
feed-
little
feed-
bit more and
If you guys have feedback for us and you want to
I'll
do
say,
that
yeah,
more
we have to
individually, then we can, and
propose
we can bring it back in
feedback.
October.
I think that's a good idea.
It's totally fine.
Because then we could wordsmith for an hour and we won't do that to us. But I appreciate it. It makes sense. I like
And
it.
it could very well stay the exact same
Yeah.
as it is, but I think it would be.
It might in October. We'll see. We'll come
So-
back to it
so
then
we-
if that's
yep,
okay.
So we need to table it, which is fine.
Yeah.
And then.
Do we need a motion?
Uh,
No.
And then just individually,
Reach
you
out to
can
him.
reach out and provide some feedback, and I can take that back to RGLT, and we can have a more refined version in October.
That
It's
sounds
totally
great.
fine. Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay, then we're gonna sneak on to the consideration of use of funds for the House File 2612.
Yep, so it's gonna be just a discussion and not necessarily a motion. So there's a couple of different avenues. So HF 2612 all had to do with a lot of different things. But as a district, we got just a little over $34,000. It was a part of the governor's funding to help with educational support personnel. There was $14 million allocated to the entire state, and they divvied it up to each building by enrollment. And so our chunk was 34,000 and change or so. So I reached out to a number of superintendents in the Prairie Lakes area, and I got a lot of different responses back as to how these funds were being applied. So the key thing to remember is that it's one-time use only funds. After removing FICA and IPERS, depending on which kind of the general lien that we have here is kind of how we can do it. That number comes down to about 29,000. We have to distribute that across about almost 75 people. So it works out to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $375 to $380 per person. Like if you looked at it as individually, or about another 30 cents per hour is another way to do it. There is no requirement that we have to bring everybody to $15 per hour. That is not what this bill was intended for. And I know I already said it, it's one time only. One time only funds. And I'll just say it again. So
How do the 75 people, where does that list? That's
So that-
everybody who's not a
so
teacher?
that is all of our educational support personnel. So that's all of our paraeducators, that's our cooks, custodians, bus monitors. It doesn't include our bus drivers because they're on a separate deal. But it includes basically any non-teaching staff.
Are van drivers considered bus drivers, same pay?
So they have a route. They get a route. for it.
Okay, that's separate.
And it has to be used for salaries, wages.
It has to be, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There was one school district that reached back, had said, what their starting salaries were, or wages already were so significantly high enough, which they still had employee gaps. But they were gonna look at trying to get like supplemental materials and trainings and things like that for for certified staff, which then they describe it's a non-allowable expense, so you can actually do that. But my guess is like how we'll have to track this at the end of the year is that we'll get a nice little Google survey that said, how did you use the money and where did it go and then what's your school district? It would be my guess, but at the same time, the intention of it is to go towards educational support personnel and their salaries.
Which again, just to clarify,
Yeah.
one-time use.
Yep.
So then we would need to budget for that increase the following year.
If so, we'd have to do it, you'd have to think it, one, we wouldn't have to budget for it if we did like a one-time lump sum. However, there's challenges with that. And then if we did give it as an hourly increase, then yes, we would be absorbing that into our budget for the following year. So then.
Okay, so kind of like a bonus almost, you could give it to them.
Yeah, but the word bonus, I don't think we use,
That's
it's like
not
a,
good. Okay.
but if that's how the brain is.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, so yeah, some districts, I'd say, I'd heard back from probably 25 of them. I'd say of those 25, 6 are probably using it for like as a one-time bonus. Some are doing it as retention for signing their contract for 25, 26. They're waiting that long for it. Some used it as a years of experience bonus, ranging from like if you've only been here for 1 year to 20, 30 years or whatever, they would range bonuses based on that. I don't necessarily love that idea, but that's what they did. But the consensus majority really was adding it to their hourly.
And the money has been received.
We have got it. We got it
So
collected.
when does a decision would be made?
Well,
Today, if we can, a month? in a
Our
month?
next pay runs next Friday, and so it wouldn't happen for next pay run. It would be
No matter what.
Right. It would be for.
Why are you thinking going on hourly would be better than lump sum? What's the advantage?
With lump sum, then we don't pay IPERS for that. So they wouldn't, and then we also have to tax them at a higher rate because it's considered a bonus. And so they would actually get less.
Okay.
So we don't want.
To be like, it's like a.
But I mean, if we're absorbing another 34,000 next year, where are we at for, I mean, how do we know if we can?
Like, can we afford to increase wages 30 cents an hour for 20? Yeah. No more October 1st, probably.
After count.
Yeah. That's why I was asking time frame wise, but.
Yeah, so if you look at it, we are 3 teachers less going into this school year. If you look at it as a teacher salary is somewhere in the neighborhood of, including all their benefits and everything else like that, where they're probably in that $60,000 to $65,000 range. So us adding another 35,000, which we've got, I mean, it's good for 1 year, and then I don't think we're ever going to get this again. Would would be my guess, then we have to look at, are the increases from this year to next year, are they a little bit dialed back because we've got this extra money this one time? So we have increased, I was looking at this, we have increased paraeducator wages by close to $3 an hour on average. Because we did, my first year here, 22, 23, we did $2. They had, so the negotiation, well, it's not a negotiation, but the increase from 21, 22 to 22, 23 happened. And then everybody got another $2 an hour on top of that. And then we've had 2 increases since then. And then now this one. So, I mean, our average is going to be well over $3 an hour that we've increased over the last 3 years. Which I know we still have work to do there, but we have made significant strides in the last few years for parents. So you guys have, like, it's really just like, if you guys have a lean one way or the other.
I
if
have
you
a
wanna-
lean, but I'm waiting to see if anybody else has a lean. One way they're leaning.
Yeah, because this is, again, I know we have a lot of things on here that aren't necessarily emotions, but
I like consensuses, so if you've gotten a consensus that most other schools are applying it as an hourly wage.
it seems to be how it's going.
I think it's the easiest way to get it to them quicker and then just move forward and know that we won't get it again.
Yeah.
To do the 30-ish cents an hour per raise, right? And then just.
And then I think it also needs to be communicated of
Yeah.
what we might be able to do next year, just.
Well, and I think that was a question back when it was in the House and it was a lot of, all the 75 people we're talking about, were asking you a lot of questions about it. So just letting them know.
Yeah,
That's why it's on there.
Ultimately where we
Yeah.
landed with it.
Okay.
Okay.
So if we have a motion,
We don't need a motion.
we don't need a motion.
It's just a consideration.
Consensus
It's
is.
just a consideration, that's what it is.
We considered it.
We considered it.
Thank you.
I'm just watching. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your consideration.
Good.
Hunger Games quote, sorry.
Obscure
I'm gonna
references.
move on. We've been here. Okay. Jay, DLR Group 3D scanning proposal.
Yep,
Super interesting.
So what DLR has proposed is to come in and do a 3D scan of every single room that we have in our building. So we would have a 3D interactive black and white map. So if you look on the top of page, I think that's page 3. Yep. So page 3, that's essentially what we would get. It's down to just a couple of millimeters for them to say, like, here's what your facilities look like. Here's, it measures everything. And essentially, from what I understood from talking to our 2 guys, is that it'll save them hours and hours of time getting like hand measurement drawings and layering that on top of maps. An example that they showed me was if you scroll up to the other one, and that's that bottom left picture, and you see all the notes and details and things that they're like basically just kind of throwing on top of each other. They're like, well, that's kind of like I'll say it's the old method is, they have their drawings, and that is more the antiquated thing. Going over to the one on the right, that's what they call it their Faro 3D laser scanner. That would like show you where every little teeny tiny screw is, that they said it would almost be like a live picture at that point. They said that's not what we need. That would be significantly more expensive than what they're proposing. But essentially their 3D scan would give them basically a live image of every single room, all of our mechanical rooms, and for them to kind of help us with our interior and exterior work of our schools, or wherever we kind of land with them. So.
Do they remove the furniture from the room, or is that something that we want to inventory as part of this process?
You mean how this one is empty? Does their computer scan remove it, or does it keep it in there?
No, it would scan furniture in there, and they would need to come in and do it on a day when there's limited people in the rooms. They said that if there's 1 or 2 people in the rooms, it would be fine. But pet person would probably be in 3D image. But they can always,
Until we do another one.
it takes just a few seconds to scan each room, so.
And this would be pretty beneficial long-term for us too, not just for what we're having them do, but for the maintenance plan. We're talking about every year looking at what we need to fix and replace. You can go back and look at this. I don't know if, does this help you to be able to come in and look at, I can see exact measurements and where stuff is, and you probably know where most of the equipment is, so.
I would say, I don't need to know room measurements for like wireless propagation.
Right.
Like that, so not so much for me, but maybe for that. And is it an interactive photo, or would you be able to, like a 3D?
Yeah, you can move
It's a
it.
3D model, yeah.
Gotcha.
It's a 3D format.
But this was part of our long-term planning.
Yeah. This is in addition to.
Okay.
So this would be like and there's an extra expense. It's another 28,500
To do the, 3D scans.
And then the timeline isn't really super specific, like, do they have to do the scan before we get started with
Nope.
all the rest?
Nope. So when we talked to Ed, they haven't like kind of finalized their timeline with us. But they'll start our community groups and meetings like that while this is all happening. Because I think they want to start with feedback, start with the kind of listening and learning, get all these things rolling, so then they can present them to the groups and say like, so here's what we have, here's what we've seen, as they're kind of looking at each individual room and see if it's meeting our needs or not, that sort of thing. So.
And do we have a timeline for when they want to get started with the?
Yeah, they're looking in the next couple of weeks. Ideally, for this, if we go forward with the scan, you guys can decide that. But if we go forward with the scan, they're looking at setting up a date for September 27th. So we won't have students, we'll have staff in the building, obviously, but I would assume that at least half of their time they're going to be doing PD, and not going to be necessarily in their classrooms, or they have to step out of their classroom for 10, 15 seconds while they scan a room. I think it'll be fine.
Does the exterior include any of the facilities, the other facilities like the NESCA or parking lots, or?
No, they'll just do our.
It's more like the
rooms.
structural buildings
So
and
they'll
stuff
do
like
that. Yeah, they'll do all three buildings. They're class, even though the Career Academy is not a separate building, they're
Yeah, it's good to
classifying
keep
as
it.
another building.
Yep, okay.
Sorry.
Ask
Just
questions,
for-
please.
When would we use this, or what would be our bang for a buck out of this?
Yeah. I think really I would call it's a nice to have. If we're looking at the existing layout or format of a room, of where things are, where things should be or could go or whatever, I think it's just basically taking our building blueprints and making them into a 3D model for all of our buildings. We have sort of a 3D model-ish for our high school, just because it was so recently done. But we don't have hardly anything for our middle school with the new plans we have. I mean, we have floor plans and floor designs, but actually seeing what the interior of our rooms actually look like versus what's on a drawing. Essentially, it's gonna save them time rather than them coming to you to measure and plan things out. It's for them to get those site designs done faster for themselves.
So what would be the cost of them coming to do it versus this?
The cost is really just time, is for them to continually come back and, go through each room, plan out and measure out and do all that, kind of in a traditional format. Whereas this is they come one time, they hit all three buildings like one day and then have this model for us. And
Right, but are they gonna be charging us additional costs if we say, no, we're not doing this?
Nothing that's above and beyond what we've already paid them. It's just I guess it's the time in between. If we start scheduling more meetings with them, with community groups or whatever, they're gonna charge us additional for outside of what they've initially laid out.
Because I'm having a harder time thinking that for close to 30,000, that we would get much use out of it personally.
Sure.
I think, what I like about it is that it does generate a 3D movable model. It'll capture everything as it is right now, which is nice. Okay, so I'm comparing it to aerial photography that we use at the courthouse all the time, and it's nice to have that, like that history of what it was, and being able to compare moving forward. And I see with this, as maybe we move add a window, take a window out, the ceiling breaks down. I think with this technology as well, because of the accuracy of the measurements, that we might find things like minor sags in the ceiling tile that a naked eye wouldn't pick out, but the machinery would be able to capture it. I don't know.
You might be able to use it for insurance too, like fixed assets and stuff. If you had a disaster. I was trying to think of, like, we hired Chad McCollum to do carpet this summer. He replaced carpet. Would these measurements be good enough for him to use and not measure and save money later?
Maybe down to like a millimeter.
Do you think like our local contractors that we hire would trust it? If we told them to trust it and then it was wrong, you know what I mean? Like, would they say, I'm picturing John McConnell sitting here being like, I would measure it anyway twice. Like, that's what I'm trying to, but if it's that good, then it would save us time later. And we could say, oh, when you're doing that estimate, no, you don't have to measure because we have it for you. Like, that's where I'm trying to decide like how it would save money later.
I personally cannot swallow doing this.
Well, and we could, if we need to, we could table it to try to get more info if there's something that we're missing. I'm trying to think of what else we could be missing with.
I just don't find it that worth $30,000 of someone coming in here to measure for carpet clip.
Right. And that was just.
No, I know, but I
Yeah,
just am not seeing the value of it.
And there are some other applications too, like this information could be shared with law enforcement. So if we had a need to come in, because of who even can imagine what the situation might be, well, now they can 3D model their way.
See, and that seems more purposeful to me. Like, at least that has a use, if they would use it. So talking to
And
them
when
to
you're
see.
in that scenario, do you have time to load up
To
a
use it.
computer to actually use it? Or are you, looking at 3D or talking to, I don't know.
And we actually just completed the critical incident mapping. We've been probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago. That was another initiative from our governor that we went through and we did, where they just had our floor plans. They walked through and found like where's all the outlets, the fire extinguishers, the fire poles, and they walked through our whole building, all 3 buildings, and kind of mapped it all out. Some school districts paid extra to have a 3D scan and 3D models done, very similar to this, but those were done in color and things like that. So, would they use it? Yeah, yes, but
I don't know, and it only captured that day and time. Oftentimes stuff does change. So, we have it and it was worth that. So when we need it done again because something changed, is it gonna be that much money again? And
Have our maintenance staff looked at this option at all to see
I'll be very transparent. They were like, it could be helpful and it could not be.
That's
from a perspective of, it might be helpful for insurance. Like if we have a mechanical room and something blows apart and, we got to call at midnight to have to go and clean up a hallway or something like that. Having a scan of that room could be entirely helpful if something more catastrophic happened.
right, but I also
Possibly.
hypothetically, and I'm totally being a devil's advocate on this, I could go around and record it and I'll charge you maybe like $100. But I'm saying like for 30,000, it's not like chump change.
So would you guys rather have more information, or do you want to?
We can either, if somebody wants to make a motion in second, we can vote it through, or vote it through the motion, whatever, and see what happens. Or we can wait to table it and see if we want. I guess I'll leave it up if anyone wants to make a motion, and if not, then it'll die and we'll talk about it another day.
I'm not hurting fast. I'm not sitting here like trying to encourage you
No,
or
we're just
anything like that. I want you to-
asking you lots of info.
Yeah.
I was kind of just going off of the question I asked, that if, yeah, our maintenance staff, we're not super keen on it, then I'm gonna go with what they are thinking.
They're
So,
pretty 50-50.
so, yeah.
So, do you want a motion and vote, or do you want
I want
Well,
whatever you guys
so
want. You can
you can do a couple of different ways. So if somebody makes a motion and nobody seconds, it's just done. And essentially it gets tabled, or we just table it and move on, or maybe somebody does motion, there is a second, obviously it would be.
Can you make a motion just to deny this request?
No, we just table
just
it.
dies.
That may just die.
Yeah. Yes, go trade.
If you vote and it's split 2-2, you wait until your fifth board member comes back and then you vote that again. You have.
If it doesn't pass with majority, then it would not pass. And then we could decide if someone wants to bring it up as a motion again. If it's on a
City
future
council,
agenda.
city council had that happen one time where it was split 2-2,
Mhm.
and they just decided to wait till the next meeting.
I believe it would just get tabled regardless, I think, so.
I guess I don't think our board would want to do something 2-2 and have it pass and go through with it, even if we legally could.
Yeah.
I think we'd want a majority, correct? I mean, that's.
Right, and
the
that's
whole-
why I asked, if
Yeah.
it ends in a tie, you don't wanna wait till you have your full board, and then your full board.
Right. And I'm
Then you
leaning
have
towards just
majority.
nobody, you guys can do a motion if you'd like. I think since there is some like maybe yes, maybe no, we try to get more info and decide if it goes on the next agenda. If that,
I can always have Eric or Andrew come back and like, you can hear from them.
Yeah, they
Well,
might-
and we did kind of hear from each of them
Yeah, a little bit.
before.
yeah.
It's just, I don't understand where we will get our value out of it. Yes, it's gonna be great for them,
And I can provide them.
but then
that
they can
feedback.
do that
Yeah.
So I
on
can-
their time.
So I can provide them that feedback too, if we want to table it, and
Yeah.
then I can say, hey, like, answer this.
Yeah.
And bring it back, and again, have the discussion in October, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right, you're tabling some stuff.
it doesn't, but it doesn't slow down us moving forward
Does
with.
not.
with the
They're
others.
already
Okay.
working on that.
Okay. Well, if there is no motion, I'm gonna continue moving forward and go, we're gonna table.
Okay, yeah.
Then I'm gonna move to K, which is the first reading of board policy 207.2. And the name of the policy is called review and revision, or at least it used to be.
Yeah, so this new naming of 207.2 is going to be review and revision of policy. Initially, what it used to be was that first top piece there, those 3 lines, just saying that we at least once every 3 years, which IASB actually says it's 5 now, to review board policy. And even if there's no changes, we note it, we review it, and so on. In observing another school district's board meeting, I had seen that they had, there's always every year, there's probably 15 to 18 policies, something like that from IASB. There's things they'll put out that are legal requirements for changes, or things that are very minor in changes, like it could be like a pronoun change, or it could be instead of using the word instructor, they're using the word teacher, and it's like very minor changes. And so this kind of captures that. So if in that, just above the note there, it says if a policy is revised because of a legal change over which the board has no control, or a change which is minor, the policy may be approved at one meeting at the discretion of the board. And so if you remember back to last year where we had, those 15 policies, and we were making a motion a second on every single one of them, 2 months in a row for changes that were like not that big of a deal. And this would essentially save us all of that time. Then this is a carbon copy, again, from IASB there, and they call it review and revision of policy rather than review of policy. And the next one after this, there's another change in the title as well, and I'll explain that.
Would we continue on our same review schedule?
We would, yeah. So Jill has that, and we review the same, not the same, but we review anywhere from like 10 to 12 policies a month.
Because I still think keeping them in front of us every 5 years, that would not be.
You might miss a whole school board member.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
They wouldn't
Well,
see them all.
we're
if
just
they
gonna
only
continue
did
on
one.
that same role.
Perfect.
This is just saying that.
At minimum.
At minimum, yeah, right. Every 5 years, we have to review all of our policies.
Perfect.
Very good.
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of board policy 207.2, review and revision of policies.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, the motion is second.
Rip Hagan.
Aye.
Fields.
Aye.
Dabbleback.
Aye.
Silva.
Aye. And then first reading of 207.3, adoption of policy.
Yep, so now, the only thing that's changing here is just the name of it. So now this is the actual adoption process, and this would be, and the big difference between the two is review and revision are like, we're looking at it, if there's minor changes, that's okay. Adoption is if we have like a brand new policy, or there's significant changes, like we're gonna have, we'll review it in a couple of months here. But there's actually a policy now about student use of cell phones, which IASB just kind of put out. I think it's in response to, you see that big shift, really statewide, nationwide, all started right here by Karen Shannon.
Yep.
But there's also ones about student truancy and attendance. There's with that legislation shift, there's some big adjustments coming there. Anyway, that would be more in the adoption process rather than a review and revision. And again, this is just mirroring IASB again.
Okay. Then I would move to approve the first reading of board policy 207.3, adoption of policy.
I will second that.
Dominic.
Aye.
Fields.
Aye.
Ritthagen.
Aye.
Silva.
Hi. Okay, now's our normal board policy review, 800 through 802.6. I don't think there was any changes. Interesting though that a lot of it was like buildings and things that we're focusing on. So that was-
Yes. Convenient timing.
Yeah, it was good.
Helps us know where stuff is too.
Yeah.
I like that.
And we did, is when Cindy and I met this earlier today, a one-on-one, there was one kind of interesting piece, which is with 802.3. It said that it shall be the responsibility of the superintendent to obtain certification from the area education agency administrator. If there was a need for me to go over the threshold to do some building repairs in the need of emergency. So I'm on a superintendent group with between Storm Lake, Pocahontas, Southeast Valley, and Riverside, just down near Boca. And I asked them about this. I said, is there ever a time where you've ever actually had to reach out to your AEA chief admin for this? And it was like, so that's with Stacy Cole, Joe Kramer, and Brian Johnson, who combined, they had like 80 years of experience of superintendency, and not one of them has ever actually applied that. But it's what's in IASB, but it was something that came up. It's like, Cindy asked, like, have you ever had to do that, or would you ever do that? And I'm like, no, I probably just reach out to you guys. You really need to do this, and it's over my threshold, and say yes, please. So anyway, just kind of something interesting. That was it, really.
I'll make a motion to approve board policies 800 through 802.6.
I will second that.
Fields.
Aye.
Dominic.
Aye.
Ritthagen.
Aye.
Silva.
Hi. And then our last one is the FFA chapter out-of-state travel requests.
This is they do this every year.
Yeah.
I will make a motion to approve the FFA chapter out-of-state travel request.
I'll second that.
Dominic.
Aye.
Fields.
Aye.
Ritthagen.
Aye.
Silva.
Hi. Being no other business, meeting adjourned.
Good deal.